Have you ever stopped to think about what really happens when a space mission doesn't go as planned? Most of us imagine space travel as a meticulously calculated adventure, with everything controlled down to the millimeter. But what about when plans begin to unravel? Imagine being hundreds of kilometers from Earth, in a vessel with critical failures, uncertain of when or how you'll return home. This scenario is more common than you might think, yet hardly anyone talks about it. What happens to astronauts when their systems fail? How do they deal with the uncertainty of an extended mission, where each day could bring new challenges? Today, I'm going to reveal everything that happens behind the scenes on these missions. I'll show you how the unexpected can make space even more hostile, and how these stories of overcoming adversity teach us valuable life lessons. Get ready, because what you'll discover here could completely change your view of space exploration, and maybe even how you handle life's unexpected challenges. Ready? 2 astronauts, Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams, were prepared for another challenging mission to the International Space Station, ISS, in June. But what seemed like just another step in the space race took an unexpected turn. Embarking on a space mission is never simple, and the factor of unpredictability is always in the air. Technical problems with the Boeing Starliner spacecraft, something that couldn't have been precisely foreseen, ended up delaying their return by months. Just imagine the planning involved in a mission of this scale, where the goal goes beyond just reaching space. Everything needs to be perfectly coordinated. But the unexpected is part of the human adventure, and that's exactly what happened. These problems weren't just minor glitches. The impact was profound, and the challenge intensifies when you're hundreds of kilometers from Earth. What was supposed to be a straightforward return, scheduled shortly after the mission, turned into a saga of waiting and adapting. Pressure mounted on the NASA team, and the astronauts had to prepare for a much longer stay than initially planned. And here, let's consider the human side. How would it be for any of us to have meticulously drawn plans interrupted by something completely beyond our control? The takeaway is clear. No matter how much we try to predict, there is always the unexpected waiting for us. Practically speaking, Wilmore and Williams had to deal not only with their original mission but with the new reality of an extended journey. This is a classic example of real-time adaptation. They were trained for this, of course, but the feeling of uncertainty is something any human has to learn to live with, even with all the training in the world. And that's a valuable lesson we can all apply in our own lives. When things don't go as planned, what really matters is our ability to adjust the sails, like a captain who changes course in the middle of a storm. And so, while Earth continued its normal course, Wilmore and Williams now had to accept this new reality. NASA began looking for solutions, but the timeline for their return remained a mystery. Life on the ISS, with its daily challenges, already showed that this mission, initially brief, would be longer than expected. But this was just the beginning of the challenges to come, because when it comes to space missions, anything can happen at any time. After Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams arrived at the International Space Station, it seemed like the worst was behind them. After all, they were safe and ready to start the scientific mission. However, the universe had other plans. Shortly afterward, serious issues arose with the propulsion system of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft. Leaks and malfunctions in the thrusters put the NASA team on high alert. Imagine the tension of knowing that the spacecraft meant to bring you back to Earth was showing critical failures. It's like being on a long car trip, only to have the engine start acting up, and you're in the middle of the desert, far from any repair shop. What's interesting here is how NASA's response was swift and meticulous. As soon as leaks and thruster issues were detected, every possible option for the astronauts' return was considered. The goal? Ensuring Wilmore and Williams' safety. The importance of propulsion in space missions is crucial, as any error could mean the difference between a safe return and extreme danger. The brilliant minds behind the mission found themselves facing a puzzle. Solve the onboard issues or find a viable alternative to bring the astronauts back to Earth. Here, we touch on an interesting point: contingency planning. It's something we can apply to our daily lives. Always having a plan B for any situation is a way to ensure that, when something goes wrong, as it did on this mission, we have another route to take. For the astronauts, Plan B meant a thorough review of all spacecraft systems, and also considering other possibilities, such as using an alternative spacecraft for rescue. In our lives, this can mean always having a second option of action when things don't go as expected. The mission's extension, once considered brief, was now in play. If the propulsion issue couldn't be resolved, the astronauts might stay in space much longer than anticipated. Alternatives were being discussed, but the definitive solution was still uncertain. And as the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. But would NASA manage to fix the issues in time? Meanwhile, new options began to emerge on the horizon, and time became a crucial factor in the equation. In light of the problems with the Boeing Starliner propulsion system, NASA began considering other options to bring Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams safely back to Earth. And here, SpaceX's Crew Dragon entered the scene as a crucial piece of the puzzle. Initially, the plan was for the astronauts to return in February 2025, but now, with the failures in the original spacecraft, an emergency solution began to take shape more clearly. The Crew Dragon, which has already proven its effectiveness in several missions, emerged as the most viable alternative for rescuing the astronauts. What had once been a short mission now stretched on for months, and the possibility of Wilmore and Williams remaining up to 8 months longer on the ISS became a real prospect. Imagine spending so much time in space when your original mission was brief. This demands an impressive level of resilience. For the 2 astronauts, this mission extension brings new physical and mental challenges that were undoubtedly not in the initial plan. But, as they say, the true test of a professional isn't following the plan when everything goes smoothly, but rather when the unexpected appears. SpaceX's Crew Dragon isn't just a symbol of innovation, it's also one of flexibility. It allows NASA to have a robust backup solution for critical missions like this one. And just like in life, it's always good to have something to rely on when things go wrong. For them, the Crew Dragon not only ensures a safe return, but also offers a glimmer of hope. In moments of uncertainty, having something that acts as an anchor is fundamental. And we can apply this to our own lives, always have an alternative solution when the original path no longer seems viable. While the final decision regarding Wilmore and Williams' return was still pending, one thing was certain. They were preparing for the possibility of an extended stay in space. And although the Crew Dragon might be the key to bringing them back, the reality of spending more months aboard the ISS was already being faced head-on by the 2 astronauts. With this, a new phase of the mission emerges, where resilience and adaptability become as crucial as the very science carried out in space. Life aboard the International Space Station is a constant challenge, especially when a mission extends beyond its original duration. For Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams, this means managing an intense routine of scientific experiments and daily maintenance while adapting to a microgravity environment. Imagine spending days, weeks, and even months in an environment where everything floats around you. Each movement must be planned, and each task carried out with precision. Daily life in space, while fascinating, requires a level of discipline that goes beyond what we normally consider on Earth. Despite the technical problems that prolonged the mission, Wilmore and Williams didn't waste any time. They remained active, conducting a series of important experiments to advance science. After all, the ISS isn't just a research station but a true laboratory in orbit, where everything from new materials to the limits of the human body is tested. An interesting example is the study of fluid behavior in microgravity, which may have direct implications for creating new fuels or medicines. Every experiment conducted there could impact the lives of millions of people in the future. However, living in space also means facing daily challenges that go beyond scientific work. From the simple task of eating to personal hygiene, everything is different on the ISS. Eating, for instance, involves using specially prepared foods to avoid crumbs that could float around and damage equipment. Then there's the issue of sleep. With the day-night cycle occurring at an accelerated pace in orbit, astronauts need to stick to fixed rest schedules. Adapting to this reality requires strong mental balance, and it's an aspect we often don't consider when thinking about life in space. This routine of intense work and constant adaptation certainly tests the astronauts' physical and emotional endurance. But NASA, with its vast experience, has well-established protocols to address these challenges. And as tough as the work may be, it's important to remember that in space, each day brings a new discovery and a fresh perspective. This daily adaptation is just the beginning of the challenges Wilmore and Williams face, as the impact of an extended mission goes far beyond routine. Space offers a fascinating but also hostile environment for the human body. For Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams, now facing a prolonged mission on the ISS, health risks are becoming an increasing concern. Exposure to long periods of microgravity and the space environment affects the body in ways only recently understood. One of the biggest challenges faced by astronauts is the loss of bone and muscle density. Without Earth's gravity to keep their bodies in shape, astronauts must undergo rigorous daily exercises using special equipment that simulates weight. But even with these precautions, bone loss can still be significant. Moreover, space radiation is another invisible enemy that Wilmore and Williams must contend with. In space, astronauts are exposed to radiation levels much higher than on Earth, which increases the risk of cancer and other long-term diseases. The ISS offers some protection, but not enough to eliminate the risk entirely. Therefore, NASA continuously monitors its astronauts' health, using advanced equipment to measure radiation exposure and adjusting the time spent in space based on these readings. This constant vigilance is essential to ensure astronaut safety during long missions. But the effects of space aren't limited to the body. Mental health is also strongly impacted. Being confined for months in a small space with no possibility of leaving can cause stress and anxiety. Moreover, the lack of direct interaction with friends and family on Earth can heighten feelings of isolation. To address this, NASA has created a series of protocols and routines, including regular video calls with psychologists and family members, recreational activities, and mental exercises that help maintain emotional balance. Still, there's no denying that space's isolation presents a psychological challenge of great magnitude. These risks, both physical and mental, are part of the life of those who choose to explore space. For Wilmore and Williams, each day on the ISS is a silent battle against the effects of the space environment. But with scientific advances and NASA's constant monitoring, astronauts are more prepared than ever to face these challenges. However, the definitive solution to these risks, especially on long-term missions, remains an ongoing endeavor. And while the search for solutions continues, the hope of a safe return is always in sight. So, what can we learn from these space missions that face the unexpected? If even astronauts, with all the training and technology at their disposal, need to adapt to unforeseen changes, what stops us from doing the same here on Earth? Perhaps you're facing challenges at work, in your personal life, or even with your health. But the truth is that every difficulty brings an opportunity for growth. How do you react when your plans go awry? Do you adjust your course, or do you let fear paralyze you? The answer to these questions can shape the course of your life. So, why not start now by applying this mindset of resilience and adaptability? Remember, it's not about avoiding problems, but about how you face them. And speaking of that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you can keep learning and discovering ways to tackle challenges, whether here on Earth or beyond the stars.